Triumphs as far as the eye can see.
Scrambler 1200 XE 23. Let's go. Is that your laptop?
Mine?
Just gonna send it, bud. It's gonna be a good day. So hey, it's Pete with Backdraft Bikes. Just coming at you with another review. These bikes are awesome. Very few changes to the platform since these were introduced back a couple years back, but there are a few that are pretty noticeable, and I just want to talk a little bit about them. It's like Triumph was listening and they heard some of the woes from people's complaints and they said, we got you and we're going to help you. So just real quick, some styling cues change, and I've got several videos because I owned one of the first ones out here. And again, not a lot has changed, but there are a few things. For instance, the suspension has gotten tweaked up a little bit. You've got a little bit more travel, a little bit easier to adjust. The springs are a little bit more robust. Also on the styling cue side, there's a few more little doodads for protection, but pretty much everything else has stayed the same. Of course, the XE model versus the XC model. The XC model, less travel and a little bit more road mannered. So you can see, even just visually looking at the suspension, you can see the difference between that one and that one, right? So I think the best thing, if you're thinking about buying one of these bikes, you're not going to be disappointed. They're super fun. 89 horsepower, 81 foot-pounds of torque. They're about 456 pounds, so they're a pretty lightweight power rate ratio package. Outside spoked wheels as well, which has become really a big deal on most of these semi-adventure type bikes. This bike I would handle in the adventure bike category just because of the upright riding position and the fact that you can outfit it to pretty much go everywhere. And I put a lot of miles on these bikes and I really do enjoy them. So let's get on the road and talk a little more. We're back on the favorite bike that I've ever owned, just because of the modern classic look, but the fact that this bike rips. They haven't changed much of anything since they introduced this bike. It's almost like they did the research and said, yeah, it's good, get it on. A few things about this bike though that are pretty cool that I remember, again, from riding it the last time and owning it for a couple years, is the upright riding position. You're fully upright in the wind, sitting up, and you really feel the road. This is a true scrambler. It's a street bike that's got a little bit heavier suspension on it, and you're getting a little bit more than a packaged off-road bike, because this bike it's got its street manners from the Bonneville chassis, but again, different tuning, different suspension, and the riding position. It's fantastic. So this bike has, I think, 89 horsepower and 81 foot-pound of torque, something like that, somewhere right around there. The bike itself is very torquey, and it's got an excellent noise to it. If you throw a set of aftermarket cans on this like I had on mine, it really comes alive. It's a lot of fun. But as it comes from the factory, it's not bad either. This bike is rather flickable and twitchy. Like you can really maneuver this bike to get around obstacles. And there's a few guys out there that have this bike and they've done some serious off-roading with it. It comes in close to 500 pounds, somewhere in the 460 range, I think, fully loaded. So it's not super duper heavy, but it isn't a light, like 250 pound dirt bike either. I think the suspension on this bike is superior. It really does a good job, not only on the bumps, but also for handling, you know, the way a motorcycle should handle on the twisties. There's a few things on this bike that Triumph I wish would have changed a little bit, and You know, maybe they will at some point, but the display, kind of what you see is what you get. There's very few options for what you can show on the display, but I mean, it's kind of that way with a lot of different bikes. There is no temperature gauge on this bike, either for the outside air temperature or a stationary coolant gauge. There's a way to configure this to make it look a little different, and it will show a coolant gauge, if you will, as far as bars, but that's about it. Now, the one thing that I have noticed on this bike already, and it kind of reminds me of when I used to have it, is the seating position. So the seat on this bike is very flat and not real spongy. It's kind of like an ironing board. Wow, look at that dog. Beethoven. It's kind of like an ironing board. So you can move around on it quite a bit, changing your seat position to adjust as you ride. But a really, really, really long ride, like if you were trying to put 500 miles on in a day, you might find that the seat lacks a little bit on the comfort side. But that being said, it's not uncomfortable. It's just not as plush as even the Bonnevilles. With the two platforms, again, the XC and the XE, just think XE extra expensive. So it is more money to get the XE, but with the XE you get much better suspension with more travel and dampening, and also just a few little bits and pieces here and there that make the bike a little bit more money. It's mainly the suspension. This bike, again, based on the Bonneville platform, has a chain. And it also has an O-ring chain, which does good, but in the off-road world of the big adventure bikes, obviously drive shafts are king because of the lack of servicing that's required. Some of the chain folks will say the chain is better because it's field adjustable. You can change out the sprockets, you can there's just all these different things you can do, but in my opinion, drive shaft is better because it's sealed, it's non-adjustable, you don't have to worry about lubing it all the time, right, and cleaning the dirt out of it. So that's just my thoughts. We're taking a little bit of a different route with this bike. This is one of the guided tours that they do, and they go over some dirt roads, which is kind of fun. So I said, what the heck, might as well. We know what this bike can do. Again, feel free to peruse my channel if you want to see some of the long-term ownership reviews of the Scrambler XE. The 23, very, very, very little has changed since they first made it. So the channel videos that I have on ownership, these are going to be very similar videos. I do know that they made it so you can reset the service reminder yourself now as well, which is kind of fun, instead of having to take it to a dealership. BMW, if you're taking notes, could you please do that? That would be fantastic, because number one, I don't want to go to the dealer all the time, and number two, the dealer is super far away. And most of us that are buying these bikes out in the sticks are going to be fixing them ourselves, so being able to at least reset the service reminder would be fantastic. Alas, I digress. On the Triumph Tiger, one of the things that they do on the XE model and the XC2 is a key fob. Now, the key fob has a switchblade key that comes out, and that allows you to unlock the seat, and also you can lock the steering column right here. The key is designed to, live in your pocket though, and Triumph has the weirdest kill switch start thing. It's a rocker switch that's momentary and blah blah blah, and it does things. I think there's a moose right. No, there isn't a moose. That's a branch. I think it's a moose. It looked like a moose. If you get yourself flicking the kill switch too many times trying to wait for it to load up, you can actually get into trouble because it will time out on you. So, kind of stinks. All right, now we're going to do a little off-roading, supposedly. It's not off-roading, it's just dirt roading. Here's a dumb thing too, by the way. So your mode buttons, road, rider, rain, and sport, those are all selectable, but you can't go into the enduro and pro modes unless you're stopped, which is stupid. Because like in this situation right here, I want to go into an off-road mode so that I got wheel spin and ABS turned down a little bit, and I can't do it. I can't do it at all, unfortunately, unless you stop. So that's kind of a bummer. I'm not sure why Triumph does that, because a lot of the other bike manufacturers, you can switch on the fly. You don't have to pull over and stop to change into the pro riding modes or the ones that disable. I know it's probably a safety feature. They don't want somebody accidentally clicking into something where they don't have ABS on or something like that. I don't know. The position on this bike for standing up is actually pretty good, and Triumph even sells tank pads, so you can stand on the bike pretty easily. And with the tank pads, you can pinch your knees quite easily on it to allow you to, have that upright riding position and pinch and move. The foot pegs on this have some really nice rubber inserts that kind of cut down the vibration. But one thing that is nice about that is the ability to be able to pull those out if you don't want them and you need the bite. That's a nice feature. One thing in Western New Hampshire and Vermont, they have all of these crazy dirt roads that go up and down the side of mountains, and I'm always baffled at the fact that they're not completely washed out everywhere. In Maine, if you had a road like this, like I live on, big huge dirt road with a hill, it's just destroyed all the time. They must use different sand over here. So this twin engine gives you a pretty nice power band, low, almost around 2,000 RPMs. You can start rolling on pretty good. See? And it gets right up to speed. Again, just a twin, easy to turn up. And the red line on this one is 7,000. It pulls pretty strong up to about 66-ish. And then it starts to die off really fast. Of course, you're approaching red line at that point as well. I do like the form factor of this bike though. Small, so easy to maneuver, but not as small as the other Bonnevilles that the frame is based off of. So it's kind of a nice compromise. It's a little bigger of a bike, high exhaust for the Scrambler look, but pretty easy to maneuver and flick around. I would take this one off-road well before I would take a Pan America or my BMW, because it's smaller, feels easier to maneuver, feels like a heavy dirt bike. That's really what it feels like. Look at those sheds. Bunch of them. I see what they're doing. They're using them for horse barns. It's a good idea. Cheap way to do it too. If you're going to get one of these bikes, I would highly suggest that you watch the video I have on setting up this suspension. The Öhlins guy goes through it with me. From the factory, these bikes have notoriously bad setup. So one side on, for instance, when I got my bike, one side was like maxed in, and the other side was like maxed out. And once we adjusted the suspension, it was like I had a brand new motorcycle. It was crazy. So I would recommend just taking a minute, checking your suspension settings, and making sure you get it dialed in for your sag and where you want to be with it. So that's about all I've got for this bike. I hope you enjoyed the ride. It's a great bike, great engine, great noise, good balance between power and weight and size. Is this bike designed to go cross country for thousands of miles? You could do it, but it'd be a long ride. Not exactly the sport touring bike, but more of a rip around, definitely an urban commuter, but rip around, and especially some of these class 4 roads, this bike really does not have a hard time with it. So it's a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know I rambled a lot, but I really like this platform of bike, and I hope that if you're considering purchasing one, you'll leave a comment down in the section and let me know what you thought of the video. Also, don't forget to subscribe, and as always, ride safe.